Cleopatra's legendary beauty wasn't just luck. It was history's most expensive obsession. To maintain that smooth texture of her skin, the queen bathed not in water, but in a warm tub filled daily with fresh milk from exactly 700 donkeys. But do you know how those mysterious scents in her palace governed sleep? Subscribe now to witness history's most luxurious, quietest, and gold-dusted day. The enchanting atmosphere of Egypt is ready to put you to sleep tonight. The world of Alexandria does not wake with a shout, but with a sigh. It is a slow, languid exhalation of the night giving way to the heat of the coming day. Inside the royal palace, situated on the Lochias promontory where the Mediterranean Sea kisses the delta of the Nile, silence is not merely an absence of noise. It is a physical weight, a velvet curtain draped over marble and gold. The air in the royal bedchamber is still, preserved in a perfect, cool stasis by the thick limestone walls that breathe out the chill accumulated during the deep desert night. In the center of the vast chamber, the bed stands like a temple within a temple. It is a massive structure carved from dark, polished ebony wood, inlaid with mother-of-pearl that catches the faintest glimmers of the pre-dawn light. The legs of the bed are shaped like the paws of lions, grounding the sleeper in symbols of strength. Yet the mattress itself is a cloud, a masterpiece of softness stuffed with the down of 10,000 geese. Upon this altar of rest lies Cleopatra. She is not a myth here, not a politician, not a goddess to be worshipped by the masses. In this suspended moment before the sun breaks the horizon, she is simply a breathing form, a consciousness floating on the border between the realm of dreams and the realm of the living. She sleeps on her side, her body tracing a gentle curve beneath the sheets. These are not ordinary linens. They are woven from the finest flax grown in the sun-drenched fields of the delta, spun so thin and so precise that the fabric behaves more like water than thread. It is sheer, cool against the skin, known as woven air by the merchants who trade it for its weight in gold. The fabric settles over her, rising and falling rhythmically with her breath. The rhythm is slow, deep, and untroubled. There is no tension in her jaw, no furrow in her brow. The weight of the crown, the complexities of Rome, the demands of the priesthood, all of these are banished from this sanctuary. Here, there is only the scent of Kifi. The fragrance is everywhere, lingering from the heavy braziers that burned low throughout the night. It is a complex, grounding perfume, the signature scent of sacred Egypt. There are notes of heavy raisins, sweet wine, honey, and the resinous, woody depth of juniper and pine. Beneath that, the faint, spicy whisper of cinnamon and myrrh. It is a smell that induces deep sleep, designed by the temple priests not just to perfume the air, but to calm the soul. It hangs in the room, a protective mist that separates the queen from the common smells of the city below, the fish, the mud, the dust. Here, the air SME. Slowly, the darkness in the room begins to dilute. It does not brighten immediately but shifts from a deep, ink black to a soft, majestic indigo. The light enters through the high, narrow windows that face the sea. These windows are draped with heavy curtains of purple silk, dyed with the precious secretions of the murex snail from Tyre. The purple is deep, almost black in the dimness, but as the sky outside lightens, the fabric begins to glow with a regal, inner fire. A single beam of pale light finds a gap in the drapery. It travels across the room, a silent herald. It moves over the polished floor, which is a mosaic of cool stones, lapis lazuli, alabaster, and green porphyry, arranged in patterns of lotus flowers and papyrus reeds. The floor is cool, waiting for the warmth of the day. Cleopatra stirs. It is a microscopic movement. Her hand, resting on the pillow, flexes slightly. The pillow is encased in silk from the Far East, a fabric so smooth it offers no friction to her skin. Her eyelashes flutter. The transition from sleep is seamless. There is no jarring alarm, no sudden noise. The palace is designed to ensure her waking is as fluid as the Nile itself. Outside the heavy cedar doors of the bedroom, the royal guards stand like statues, their breathing shallow and controlled so as not to disturb the silence. Further down the corridor, the handmaidens are already awake, moving like ghosts in their soft leather sandals, preparing the water, the oils, the towels. Her eyes open. For a moment, she stares at the canopy above her bed. It is embroidered with gold thread, depicting the night sky as it appeared on the day of her birth. The stars are knots of bullion, the constellations mapped out in pearls. She looks at her own personal heaven, grounding herself in her destiny before she even lifts her head. She takes a deep breath, filling her lungs with the incense-laden air. She stretches her legs, feeling the coolness of the linen sheet slide against her skin. The sensation is exquisite, the contrast between the warmth of her body and the cool embrace of the fabric. She turns onto her back, her arms spreading out, claiming the space. The bed is vast, a lonely ocean of luxury, but she does not feel small within it. She feels expansive. She pushes herself up slowly, propping her back against the mountain of pillows. Her hair, dark and unbound, cascades over her shoulders. It has been brushed with oils of almond and morina before she slept, and even now, after a night of rest, it retains a glossy, healthy sheen, smelling faintly of nuts and flowers. She runs a hand through it, untangling a loose strand. She looks towards the balcony. The heavy curtains are swaying slightly, indicating a breeze from the harbor. This is the Etesian wind, the summer blessing that cools the city. It carries the taste of salt and the moisture of the sea, cutting through the dry desert heat that will soon descend. She slides her legs out from under the covers. Her feet touch the floor. The sensation is sharp and grounding. The polished stone is cold, a refreshing shock that travels up her legs and wakes her nerves. She stands. Her nightgown is a simple slip of translucent white linen, falling to her ankles. It ripples around her as she walks, ghostly and ethereal. She moves towards the balcony doors. They are tall, framed in gold leaf, and stand slightly ajar. She pushes them open with both hands. The hinges are oiled daily. They swing outward silently, revealing the world. The balcony is a wide terrace of white marble, suspended over the edge of the palace grounds. Below her, the royal gardens are a deep, verdant green, still shadowed by the palace walls. Palm trees stand in neat rows, their fronds still heavy with the morning dew. She can see the shimmer of the decorative pools, where lotus flowers are just beginning to unfurl their petals to the sun. Beyond the gardens lies the great harbor of Alexandria. The water is a sheet of glass, mirroring the lavender and pink of the pre-dawn sky. The famous lighthouse, the Pharos, stands in the distance on its island, its massive fire at the top now just a smudge of smoke against the brightening sky, its job done for the night. The light of the sun has not yet crested the horizon, but the promise of it turns the sky into a gradient of impossible colors, from deep violet in the west to a burning, molten gold in the east. Cleopatra walks to the marble balustrade. The stone is damp with sea mist. She places her hands on it, feeling the moisture. She leans forward, looking down at her city. At this hour, Alexandria is a sleeping giant. The great library, the museum, the bustling markets, the shipyards, all are quiet. There is no shouting of merchants, no clatter of chariot wheels, no hammering of shipwrights. There is only the rhythmic, eternal sound of the waves lapping against the stone sea walls. It is the heartbeat of the city. She closes her eyes and listens to it. It is a hypnotic sound, consistent and ancient. A bird calls out, an ibis, perhaps, waking in the reeds of the royal marshes. Its cry is lonely and sharp, echoing briefly before being swallowed by the vastness of the morning. Cleopatra opens her eyes. She feels the breeze lift the hair from her neck, cooling the skin that was warmed by the pillows. She is alone, truly alone, in this brief window of time before the duties of the state crash in upon her. She is not the queen of kings right now. She is a woman standing on a balcony, drinking in the morning air. She turns back towards the room. The movement alerts the head handmaiden, who has been waiting silently in the shadows of the antechamber. Seeing her queen standing, the handmaiden prepares her staff. The heavy doors to the bedroom open. The handmaidens enter. There are 4 of them. They move in a choreographed dance of servitude. They do not speak. To speak would be to break the sacred spell of the morning. They carry the tools of the first ritual. One carries a silver basin filled with warm water, infused with rose petals that float on the surface like pink islands. Another carries a stack of fresh towels, heated over steam so they are warm to the touch. The third carries a tray with a small alabaster cup and a pitcher of water mixed with lemon and honey. The fourth carries a robe of heavy silk, dyed a soft, pale saffron color. They approach the queen, who has returned to sit on the edge of the bed. They kneel in unison. The movement of their robes is a background sound, a soft, dry rhythm. Cleopatra extends her hands. The first handmaiden rises and places the silver basin on a low stool before the queen. She dips a sponge, a natural sea sponge harvested from the deep waters off the coast, into the rose water. She squeezes it gently, allowing the excess water to trickle back into the basin. Then, with infinite tenderness, she begins to wipe the queen's face. The water is perfectly tepid, neither hot nor cold. It smells of summer gardens. The sponge moves over Cleopatra's forehead, her cheeks, her chin, wiping away the remnants of sleep. It is a massage as much as a cleansing. The queen closes her eyes again, leaning into the touch. Next, the handmaiden takes the queen's hands. She washes each finger individually, working the rose water into the cuticles, cleansing the palms. Cleopatra's hands are not the rough hands of a worker, but they are strong. The water soothes them. Once washed, the second handmaiden steps forward with the warm towels. She presses the fabric against the queen's face, blotting the moisture. The warmth of the towel penetrates the skin, relaxing the muscles around the eyes and mouth. The towel is removed, revealing skin that glows with freshness. The third handmaiden offers the drink. It is a morning tonic, a mixture of water from a pure desert spring, wild honey, and a squeeze of lemon. Cleopatra takes the alabaster cup. It is cool and smooth in her hand. She raises it to her lips and drinks. The liquid is tart and sweet, a shock to the palate that cleanses the throat and wakes the stomach. She drinks slowly, savoring the taste of the honey. She hands the empty cup back. The fourth handmaiden approaches with the robe. Cleopatra stands up. The thin nightgown is removed with a fluid motion, slipping off her shoulders and pooling on the floor like spilled milk. For a second, the air touches her bare skin, cool and bracing. Then the saffron robe is draped over her. It is heavy, grounding her. The silk is thick, lined with soft cotton. It wraps around her like a warm embrace. The handmaiden ties the sash at her waist. Now the room is fully awake. The sun has breached the horizon. The beam of light on the floor has widened, turning the lapis lazuli tiles into pools of electric blue. The dust motes dancing in the shafts of light look like suspended gold dust. The atmosphere in the room shifts. It is no longer the cave of sleep. It is the chamber of the queen. But the pace remains slow. There is no rush. Cleopatra walks towards the vanity table. It is a masterpiece of craftsmanship, a table of cedar wood covered in thin sheets of beaten gold. On it sits a mirror of polished silver, so clear it reflects the soul. Arranged around the mirror are dozens of small jars, pots, and bottles. Alabaster, glass, faience, and clay. They contain the secrets of her beauty. Kohl for the eyes, ochre for the lips, henna for the palms, crushed beetles for rouge, and oils of every scent imaginable. Lily, lotus, almond, sesame, olive. She sits on the cushioned stool before the mirror. She looks at her reflection. The face staring back is calm. The eyes are dark and intelligent, framed by the long, glossy hair. She does not reach for the makeup yet. That is a mask for later, a mask for the court and the ambassadors. For now, She simply observes the woman beneath the crown. She picks up a comb carved from ivory. She begins to pull it through her hair. The movement of the comb through the hair is rhythmic and soothing. She starts at the ends, working her way up to the roots, untangling the night's knots with patience. The handmaidens have retreated to the edges of the room. They are folding the bedsheets, smoothing the mattress, refreshing the incense braziers. Their movements are a background hum, a reassuring presence that tells her that her world is in order. Order is everything. In a world of chaos, of shifting alliances and wars, this room, this morning ritual, is the one thing she can control completely. It is her anchor. She sets the comb down. She picks up a small jar of cream. It is thick and white, made from donkey milk and honey. She dips her fingers into it. The texture is cool and rich. She applies it to her neck, massaging it in with upward strokes. Her skin drinks it in. She can feel the tension in her neck muscles melting away under the pressure of her own fingers. She works the cream into her shoulders, closing her eyes and tilting her head back. She breathes in deeply again. The scent of the rose water on her skin mixes with the scent of the incense in the room, creating a new, personal perfume. The presence of the chamberlain is felt at the door, waiting for permission to announce the schedule. But he knows better than to enter. He waits. Cleopatra ignores the door. She is not ready. She has not finished her morning tea. She picks up a small jade roller, a tool brought from the silk lands of the East, kept on ice. She rolls it under her eyes, the cold stone depuffing the skin, waking up the blood flow. She rolls it over her forehead, her cheeks. The sensation is icy and invigorating. She stands up again and walks back to the balcony. The sun is higher now. The sky has lost its pinks and purples and is settling into the hard, bright blue of the Egyptian day. The harbor is waking up. She can see tiny figures on the docks, moving like ants. A ship is unfurling its sails, a bloom of white canvas catching the wind. But up here, high above it all, it is still quiet. The wind is stronger now, rustling the heavy silk of her robe. She leans against the pillar, watching the light hit the water. It sparkles like 1,000 diamonds scattered on the surface of the sea. This is her kingdom. This is her city. And this is her morning. Before the politics, before the scrolls, before the arguments, there is this, the sun, the sea, the silk, and the silence. She stays there for a long time, just breathing, just being. She is gathering her strength, drawing it from the stones of the palace, from the air of the Nile, storing it inside her like a battery. She will need it later, but not yet, not just yet. The golden dawn belongs only to her. The transition from the balcony back into the heart of the chamber is a passage from the elemental world of air and water to the constructed world of artifice and power. Cleopatra steps away from the sunlight, her silhouette receding into the cool, perfumed shadows of the dressing alcove. The saffron robe she donned earlier is now loosened, slipping from her shoulders with a whisper of silk against skin, leaving her seated before the great mirror in her undertunic. The transformation is about to begin. She is not merely dressing for the day. She is building an icon. The dressing room is a sanctuary of sensory overload, yet controlled with mathematical precision. The walls here are lined with shelves of cedar wood, each compartment filled with folded garments, rolls of linen, and boxes of jewelry that could ransom a kingdom. The air is thick with the scent of heated beeswax and precious oils. The handmaidens move in closer now. Their role shifts from that of servants to that of artists. They work in a silence so profound that the only audible sounds are the soft clink of metal against stone and the rustle of fabric. The first layer is the wig. In the heat of Egypt, natural hair is practical, but the wig is political. It rests on a wooden stand, a masterpiece of human hair and black sheep's wool, braided into hundreds of tiny, uniform plaits. It has been dusted with gold powder, so that even in the dimmest light, it glimmers. A handmaiden lifts it with both hands, treating it with the reverence due a religious artifact. She lowers it slowly onto the queen's head. The sensation is one of sudden, comforting weight. It frames her face, instantly sharpening her features, turning the soft human curves into something geometric, eternal, and divine. The smell of the wig is distinct, beeswax and resin, the scent of preservation. Now comes the face of the goddess. The cosmetic chest is opened. It is an intricate box of ebony and ivory, its drawers sliding open to reveal the palette of the Nile. A handmaiden selects a thin stick of polished glass. She dips it into a jar of coal, galena ground into a microscopic dust and mixed with animal fat. She leans in. Cleopatra does not blink. The glass stick touches the inner corner of her eye. With a steady, practiced hand, the handmaiden draws the line outward, extending it past the eyelid towards the temple. It is a thick, dark line that absorbs the light. One eye, then the other. The effect is immediate. Her gaze becomes piercing, feline, capable of seeing through the lies of ambassadors and generals. Next, the malachite, a green paste ground from the copper ore of the Sinai mines. It is applied to the eyelids, a swipe of vibrant, earthen green that mimics the fertility of the Nile Delta. It cools the skin, protecting it from the glare of the sun. Then, a touch of red ochre on the lips and cheeks, blended seamlessly until it looks like a natural flush of vitality. Cleopatra stares at her reflection. The woman who stood on the balcony is gone. In her place sits the pharaoh, the daughter of Ra. Her face is now a mask of perfection, an impenetrable surface upon which her subjects can project their fears and hopes. The jewelry is the armor of her station. It is brought out on trays lined with velvet. Today she chooses emeralds. These are not small stones. They are massive, uncut gems from her own mines in the eastern desert, cloudy and deep green, polished to a dull, waxy sheen. The necklace is heavy. As the handmaiden fastens the gold clasp at the back of her neck, the cold weight of the stones settles against Cleopatra's collarbone. It is a physical reminder of the burden of rule. The stones warm slowly against her skin. Matching bracelets are slid onto her wrists, thick bands of gold engraved with protective hieroglyphs. The sound of the gold hitting the wooden vanity is sharp and clear. Finally, the outer dress. It is a cullis iris, a sheath dress of semi-transparent linen, pleated so finely that it expands and contracts with her movement like a living skin. It is white, the color of ritual purity. Over this, a broad collar of beads, lapis lazuli, carnelian, and turquoise, is draped over her shoulders, covering the upper chest in a mosaic of color. A sheer cloak of royal blue is pinned to her shoulders with golden fibulae shaped like crocodiles. She stands. The weight of the wig, the gold, the stones, and the fabric pushes her down into the earth, grounding her stance. She moves differently now. Her chin is higher. Her steps are measured. She does not walk. She glides. The dressing is complete. The handmaidens step back, bowing their heads. Cleopatra turns from the mirror. She does not acknowledge them. She moves towards the small antechamber where her morning meal awaits. The transition from the dressing room to the breakfast table is a short journey through a corridor painted with scenes of the harvest, a reminder of the abundance she commands. The breakfast table is small, set near a window that offers a view of the palace gardens, distinct from the sea view of the bedroom. Here, the light is filtered through the green leaves of a date palm, casting dappled shadows on the white tablecloth. The meal is a study in restraint and quality. There are no heavy meats, no rich stews. It is a meal for a mind that needs to remain sharp. On a silver platter sits a cluster of figs, their skins dark purple, almost black, bursting with ripeness. Beside them, a pomegranate has been broken open, its ruby seeds glistening like the jewels she wears. There is a small loaf of bread, emmer wheat baked with coriander seeds, still warm from the ovens. A dish of soft goat cheese, drizzled with olive oil, sits next to a bowl of almonds. Cleopatra sits on a high-backed chair with lion-headed armrests. She reaches for a figure. The skin is soft, yielding under her fingertips. She breaks it open. The pink flesh inside smells of honey and earth. She eats slowly. There is no sound of chewing, no clatter of cutlery. She picks up a pomegranate seed and places it on her tongue, pressing it against the roof of her mouth until it bursts in a tart explosion of juice. It wakes the senses fully. She breaks a piece of the warm bread, dipping it into the olive oil. The taste is simple, ancient, and sustaining. As she eats, she looks out at the garden. A gardener is working in the distance, pruning a rose bush. He moves with a rhythmic, bowing motion. He does not know he is being watched by his queen. She observes him with the same detached intensity she used to observe her reflection. The world is a series of systems, the garden, the palace, the kingdom, and she is the gear that turns them all. A servant enters, carrying a second drink. It is not wine, but a tea brewed from hibiscus flowers, deep red and sour. He places it on the table and retreats backward. The steam rises from the cup, curling into the air, dancing with the dust motes. Cleopatra wraps her hands around the warm clay cup. The warmth seeps into her palms, balancing the cold weight of the emeralds on her chest. She finishes the meal in solitude. This is the last moment of peace. Beyond the double doors of the antechamber, the court is assembling. Scribes are unrolling papyrus scrolls filled with crop reports and tax levies. Generals are arguing over maps. Ambassadors from Rome are rehearsing their veiled threats. But in here, the time is still liquid. The fig is still sweet. The tea is still warm. She wipes her hands on a linen napkin. She adjusts a bracelet that has slipped. She takes a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the hibiscus and the lingering beeswax of her wig. She closes her eyes for a heartbeat, visualizing the day ahead. She sees the meetings, the decisions, the signatures. She organizes them in her mind, stacking them like bricks. When she opens her eyes, the softness is gone. The woman who woke up in the linen sheets has vanished completely. Only the queen remains. She stands up. The chair scrapes softly against the floor. A signal. The sound alerts the guards outside. The heavy double doors at the end of the room begin to swing open. The noise of the court, a low, humming murmur of dozens of voices, floods into the quiet room like a sudden tide. Cleopatra steps forward to meet it. She does not hesitate. She walks into the noise, carrying the silence of the morning with her. Wrapped in gold, armored in emeralds, a living goddess stepping into the arena of the world. The heavy double doors of the private chambers have closed behind her, sealing away the intimacy of the morning. Now, Cleopatra stands at the threshold of the great audience hall. This is not merely a room. It is a cavern of calculated intimidation and awe, designed to make any visitor feel insignificant before the might of the Ptolemies. The ceiling soars high above, painted a deep, celestial blue and scattered with gold stars, mimicking the night sky she slept under. But here, the sky is supported by massive columns carved to resemble bundles of lotus and papyrus stalks. The transition is stark. She has moved from the soft, diffused light of the garden breakfast to a world of shadows and directed beams of power. She enters. The room is vast, stretching out like the nave of a great temple. The floor is a polished mirror of black basalt, so dark and so reflective that walking upon it feels like walking on deep water. Her golden sandals make no sound on the stone. The soles are padded with soft leather, ensuring that the queen arrives as silently as a cat. Along the walls, spaced with geometric perfection, stand the royal guards. They are statues of bronze and muscle, holding their spears perfectly vertical, their eyes fixed on the empty air before them. They do not move. They do not blink. They are part of the architecture, living pillars supporting the atmosphere of absolute control. At the far end of the hall, raised upon a dais of 5 marble steps, sits the throne of Isis. It is not a chair for comfort. It is a machine of statecraft. Carved from solid gold and overlaid with sheets of lapis lazuli, it catches the shafts of sunlight that are engineered to fall precisely upon the spot from the high clerestory windows. Cleopatra ascends the steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The movement is slow, a rhythmic ascension that everyone in the room watches. She turns and sits. The gold is cool against her back, hard and unyielding. She places her hands on the armrests, which are shaped like sphinxes. She assumes the pose, the spine straight, the chin level, the gaze unfocused yet all-seeing. She has become the statue. To her left and right stand the flabellifers, the fan-bearers. They hold long poles topped with the magnificent plumes of ostrich feathers, dyed in alternating bands of turquoise and white. They begin their work. It is a slow, synchronized motion. Swoosh, pause, swoosh, pause. The feathers arc through the air, creating a gentle, rhythmic breeze that cools the queen and disperses the incense smoke drifting from the great copper braziers. The sound of the fans is the metronome of the room. It is a low, hushed whisper of air that underlies every other sound. It is hypnotic, a heartbeat that slows the pulse of anyone who enters. The business of the empire begins. It is not a chaotic exchange of shouting voices. It is a ceremony of murmurs. The vizier approaches the foot of the dais. He kneels, touching his forehead to the black basalt. He rises but keeps his eyes lowered. He holds a scroll of papyrus, unrolling it with a dry, crackling sound that echoes in the silence. He begins to read. His voice is a low drone, a monotonous chant of numbers and names. He reads the reports of the Nileometer, the water levels recorded at Elephantine. He reads the grain harvest projections from the Fayum. He reads the tax receipts from the port of Pelusium. Cleopatra listens. To an outsider, this list of grain bushels and water levels would be a lullaby, a boring recitation of logistics. But to her, it is the music of survival. She does not speak. She does not need to interrupt. She simply listens to the flow of the data, her mind visualizing the barges moving down the river, the granaries filling up, the gold flowing into the treasury. Occasionally, she raises a single finger. The vizier pauses. A scribe, seated cross-legged on the floor to the side, dips his reed brush into a palette of ink. He waits. Cleopatra gives a slight nod or a single whispered word of command. The scribe writes it down. Scritch, scratch, scritch. The sound of the reed on the papyrus is sharp and tactile. Then the reading continues. The drone resumes. The air in the hall is thick and heavy. It smells of cedarwood oil, used to preserve the ancient scrolls, and the metallic tang of bronze polish. Mixed with this is the scent of the lilies arranged in great alabaster vases between the columns. The heat of the Egyptian day is building outside, baking the limestone walls of the palace, but inside, the thick masonry and the rhythmic fanning keep the temperature in a state of eternal, cool twilight. Dust motes dance in the shafts of light, swirling in the eddies of air created by the fans. Cleopatra watches them. They are like tiny galaxies spinning in the void. Hours pass. The sun moves across the sky, shifting the angles of the light beams on the black floor. The stream of petitioners changes, but the rhythm remains the same. A merchant from Judea seeking a trade permit. An architect presenting plans for a new temple to Hathor. A general outlining the rotation of the garrison. They all approach, they all kneel, they all whisper. The queen remains motionless on her golden seat. She is an anchor. She does not fidget. She does not slouch. She is the stillness at the center of the turning wheel. Her hand moves to the signet ring on her finger. It is a large amethyst, carved with the image of a lion. A document is brought forward for her seal. A servant drips hot wax onto the papyrus. The smell of the melting wax is sharp and resinous. Cleopatra presses the stone into the soft red pool. She holds it there for a moment, feeling the heat radiate up through the ring. She lifts her hand. The impression is perfect. The law is made. The document is rolled up and taken away. The sound of the wax cooling and hardening is inaudible, but she feels it. The repetition is soothing. The endless cycle of governance. Report, listen, decide, seal. Report, listen, decide, seal. It is a form of meditation. Her breathing aligns with the swoosh of the ostrich feathers. Inhale, swoosh. Exhale, swoosh. The grandeur of the room, the gold, the guards, the height of the ceiling. It all serves to create a buffer against the chaotic reality of the world. Here, everything is ordered. Everything is recorded. Everything is under control. Suddenly, the vizier signals the end of the morning session. The last scroll is rolled up. The last petitioner backs away, bowing until he disappears into the shadows of the entrance. The hall is empty now, save for the guards and the fan-bearers. The silence returns, heavier than before. Cleopatra remains seated for a moment longer. She looks out over the empty expanse of the black floor. She feels the vibration of the silence. It is a physical presence. The weight of the crown feels lighter now, supported by the machinery of the court. She rises. The movement breaks the spell. The fan-bearers stop their rhythmic motion. The breeze dies down. She descends the marble steps. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She steps back onto the black basalt. She walks towards the side entrance, the private passage that leads to the library. The heavy duties of the state are done for the morning. Now, the Queen of Kings will retreat from the public eye. She leaves the gold and the grandeur behind, slipping back into the shadows, moving towards the scent of old parchment and the promise of quiet knowledge. The great doors of the audience hall close behind her with a deep, resonant thud, sealing the power inside, waiting for the next sunrise. The heavy doors of the audience hall have sealed away the weight of the crown, but the day is far from over. Cleopatra moves now through a private corridor that connects the royal residence to the intellectual heart of the city. The transition is palpable. The air changes. The metallic, incense-heavy atmosphere of the throne room gives way to something drier, older, and strangely sweeter. It is the scent of knowledge, a mixture of drying papyrus, cedar oil used to ward off worms, and the faint, dusty smell of thousands of years of human thought. She emerges into the colonnade of the Mouseion, the great library of Alexandria. It is not merely a building. It is a city within a city, a labyrinth of stone and scroll dedicated to the muses. At this hour, the sun is high, beating down on the white marble courtyard, but under the covered walkways, the shade is deep and cool. The silence here is different from the silence of the throne room. That was a silence of fear and discipline. This is a silence of concentration. It is a living hush, filled with the invisible energy of 100 scholars bent over their desks, their minds traveling to distant stars or dissecting the geometry of the earth. Cleopatra walks alone. Here she needs no guards. The scholars she passes, astronomers from Babylon, poets from Athens, mathematicians from Cyrene, barely look up. They are lost in their own worlds. Those who do notice her offer a simple, distracted bow, not to the queen, but to the fellow scholar. She respects this. In this place, rank is determined not by blood, but by intellect. She glides past the great lecture halls where the dust motes dance in shafts of light, past the anatomical rooms where the mysteries of the human body are mapped, and heads towards the royal wing. This is her private sanctuary, a secluded section of the library accessible only to the Ptolemies. She pushes open a lattice door of carved cedar wood. The room inside is circular, a rotunda with a domed ceiling that mimics the vault of the heavens. The walls are lined from floor to ceiling with niches, each one honeycombed with cubbyholes holding rolled papyrus scrolls. There are thousands of them. They are the memories of the world. Some are fresh and white, written just yesterday. Others are yellow and brittle, survivors of centuries. In the center of the room stands a large table of polished cypress wood. It is cluttered with the tools of study: bronze compasses, celestial globes, palettes of red and black ink, and reed brushes of various thicknesses. A single high window, angled to the north to avoid the harsh direct sunlight, illuminates the workspace with a steady, diffuse gray light. It is the perfect light for reading, soft on the eyes, unchanging as the hours pass. Cleopatra approaches the table. She runs her hand over the smooth wood. She feels the tension of the morning court session draining away. Here, there are no petitions, no taxes, no famines. There is only logic. There is only truth waiting to be discovered. She moves to a specific shelf and retrieves a scroll. It is a heavy roll, encased in a leather cylinder to protect it from the humidity of the sea. She carries it to the table and sits on a simple wooden stool. The act of sitting here is different from sitting on the throne. There is no posture of command. She slumps slightly, leaning forward, her elbows on the table, her chin resting in her hand. She pulls the ivory tag hanging from the end of the scroll. It reads Euclid Elements. She begins to unroll it. The sound is a dry, crisp crackle. Crinkle, crinkle. The papyrus is high quality, smooth and fibrous under her fingertips. She unrolls it with her left hand while rolling up the slack with her right, revealing a column of Greek text written in a tight, elegant uncial script. Beside the text are geometric diagrams, circles, triangles, intersecting lines, drawn with razor-sharp precision. She begins to read. Her eyes scan the lines, not rushing, but absorbing. She is reading about the properties of the circle, the perfection of a form that has no beginning and no end. As she reads, the world outside ceases to exist. The shouting in the harbor, the politics of Rome, the demands of her children. All of it fades into a meaningless background hum. Her mind locks onto the geometry. She traces a line on the diagram with her fingernail. She visualizes the shapes floating in the air before her. It is a mental exercise, a way to sharpen her mind like a blade against a whetstone. A servant enters silently, placing a small bowl of dried dates and walnuts on the corner of the table. He pours fresh water into a glass cup and retreats. Cleopatra does not look up. Her hand reaches out instinctively, finding a date, and brings it to her mouth. She chews slowly, the sweetness of the fruit bursting on her tongue, but her eyes never leave the papyrus. The intellectual hunger is greater than the physical one. Time stretches. The light from the window shifts across the table, crawling over the scrolls like a sundial. She switches texts. She puts away the geometry and pulls down a scroll on pharmacology. She is fascinated by poisons and cures, by the way the earth can both kill and heal. She reads a treatise on the venom of the asp, the effects of hemlock, the soothing properties of opium. She picks up a reed pen and makes a note in the margin of a wax tablet lying beside her. The smell of the wax is familiar, grounding. She writes quickly, her hand moving in short, decisive strokes. The library is a time machine. In this room, she sits in conversation with men who died 300 years ago. She argues with Aristotle. She agrees with Herodotus. She questions Plato. She is not alone. She is surrounded by the best minds of history. The isolation of her queenship, the fact that there is no one living who is her equal, dissolves here. In the Republic of Letters, she has peers. A soft breeze wanders in through the lattice, carrying the scent of the sea, mixing with the dry smell of the scrolls. It rustles the edges of the papyrus. Flap, flap, flap. It is a gentle reminder of the world outside. Cleopatra pauses. She rubs her eyes with the heel of her hand. She feels a pleasant fatigue, the specific exhaustion that comes from deep mental effort. It is a clean tiredness, unlike the muddy exhaustion of politics. She rolls up the scroll. The closing sound is a reverse of the opening, a soft whoosh as the air is squeezed out of the roll. She places it back in its leather case and returns it to the niche. She stands and stretches, hearing the small pops of her spine aligning. She walks to the center of the room and looks up at the dome. The painted stars stare back at her. She has spent the afternoon traveling through the universe without leaving her chair. She is recharged. The morning drained her. The library has filled her. She feels sharper, colder, more precise. The knowledge she has ingested settles in her mind, another weapon in her arsenal. She turns to leave. The sanctuary has served its purpose. She walks back out into the colonnade, her steps echoing slightly on the stone. The sun is lower now, casting long, dramatic shadows between the pillars. The library is quieting down as evening approaches. The scholars are packing away their instruments, but the silence remains, the heavy, pregnant silence of a million unread words waiting in the dark. The afternoon sun has begun its slow descent, losing the fierce, white-hot intensity of midday and softening into a warm, amber glow. Cleopatra emerges from the cool sanctuary of the library, her mind sharpened by the hours of study, but her body now craving the rhythm of the water. She walks through the palace gardens, where the shadows of the palm trees are stretching long and thin across the gravel paths. The air is changing again. The dryness of the desert is being replaced by a humid, earthy freshness rising from the water. She arrives at the royal harbor, a private enclave separate from the bustling commercial docks. Here, bobbing gently on the water, awaits the Thalamigos. It is not merely a boat. It is a floating palace, a marvel of engineering and luxury that is unrivaled in the ancient world. The vessel is immense, 2 stories high, painted in white and gold that gleams against the deep blue of the harbor. Its sails are furled for now, heavy folds of Tyrian purple silk that cost more than a temple. Cleopatra steps onto the gangplank. It is covered in a thick carpet to cushion her steps. As she boards, she feels the subtle shift in the ground beneath her feet. The solid stability of the earth gives way to the gentle, living sway of the river. It is a soothing sensation, a rocking motion that mimics the heartbeat of a mother. She is welcomed not by words, but by the silent bows of the oarsmen. They are seated in the lower galleries, hidden from view, their muscles ready to propel the queen effortlessly across the water. She ascends to the upper deck. This is her evening sanctuary. It is an open-air pavilion shaded by a canopy of linen embroidered with silver stars. The floor is not wood, but mosaic tiles depicting river scenes, ducks flying from the reeds, hippos submerged in the mud. In the center of the deck, a low couch has been prepared, piled high with cushions of silk and velvet in shades of indigo and violet. A small table holds a silver pitcher of chilled wine and a bowl of fresh grapes, still dusty with the bloom of the vineyard. The barge begins to move. There is no sudden lurch, only a smooth, gliding acceleration as the oars bite into the water below. The palace recedes slowly. The massive stone walls, the lighthouse, the library, all of it shrinks into a majestic backdrop. They are leaving the city behind. They are entering the domain of the Nile. The river at this hour is a mirror of the sky. The water is smooth, glassy, and dark, reflecting the deepening gold of the horizon. As the barge cuts through it, the water parts in a silent V-shape, rippling outwards towards the banks. The sound is a continuous, hushed murmur of liquid against wood. It is white noise in its purest form, drowning out the lingering thoughts of politics and war. Cleopatra reclines on the couch. She removes her sandals, letting her bare feet feel the cool mosaic tiles. She watches the banks of the river passing by. Life here is simpler, slower. She sees the fellahin, the farmers, finishing their day's work in the fields. They are small figures in the distance, walking home along the dikes, leading their oxen. She sees the white ibises standing motionless in the shallows, like statues carved from alabaster. She sees the fishermen casting their nets one last time, the mesh settling silently onto the water. The light begins to change rapidly now. The golden hour of Egypt has arrived. The sun dips lower, turning the sky into a palette of fire. Oranges, pinks, and crimsons bleed into one another, staining the clouds. The light hits the water and turns the Nile into a river of molten bronze. The gold leaf on the barge glows with an inner fire, matching the sky. For a moment, everything is gold. The air, the water, the boat, the queen. It is a moment of suspended time, where the boundary between the earth and the heavens seems to dissolve. A gentle breeze picks up from the north. It fills the purple sails, which have been unfurled to catch the evening wind. The fabric snaps softly, a dull, heavy sound like a heartbeat. The breeze carries the scent of the river mud, a smell that is fertile, rich, and ancient. It is the smell of life itself. It mixes with the faint perfume of the blue lotus flowers that float in wide patches along the river's edge. Cleopatra closes her eyes. She feels the movement of the boat in her bones. It is a cradle. The worries of the day, the scrolls, the petitions, the strategies are left back on the shore. Here on the water she is weightless. She breathes in the cooling air, filling her lungs with the essence of the river. She listens to the rhythm of the oars, a steady, hypnotic beat that has propelled her ancestors for 3,000 years. Pull, glide, pull, glide. The sun touches the horizon, a half-disk of burning red. The shadows on the deck lengthen, swallowing the gold. The air grows cooler, a relief after the heat of the day. Servants appear silently to light the oil lamps hung around the canopy. The flames flicker behind glass shields, casting a warm, dancing light on the deck. The world is narrowing down. The vast vistas of the day are fading into the intimacy of the night. The river is no longer gold, but a deep, mysterious purple. Cleopatra reaches for a grape. It is cool and sweet. She watches the first star appear in the darkening sky, Sirius, the star of Isis. She greets it silently. The barge continues its slow drift, moving deeper into the twilight. The city is just a glow in the distance now. She is alone with the river and the stars. The journey is not about a destination. It is about this state of being, this floating suspension between the day that has passed and the night that is to come. She is safe. She is calm. She is drifting towards dreams. The royal barge has docked silently at the private quay, its purple sails folding away like the wings of a resting moth. Cleopatra steps back onto the solid stone of the palace grounds. The transition from the swaying river to the motionless earth is grounding. Night has now fully conquered Alexandria. The fierce white sun is a distant memory, replaced by a sky of infinite, crushing blackness, pierced only by the cold, diamond-hard light of the stars. The heat of the day has risen from the stones, leaving the air cool and crisp, carrying the salty tang of the sea mixed with the night-blooming jasmine from the gardens. She moves towards the western pavilion, the designated site for the evening meal. This is not the great audience hall with its imposing columns. This is a space designed for intimacy and sensory indulgence. As she approaches the entrance, the first thing that greets her is not a sight, but a scent. It is an overwhelming, intoxicating wave of roses. Not the faint smell of a single flower, but the concentrated essence of 1,000 acres of blooms. She crosses the threshold. The room is a masterpiece of atmospheric engineering. There are no torches here, no smoking fires to sting the eyes. The light comes from hundreds of alabaster lamps, carved so thinly that the oil flames inside turn the stone into glowing pearls of soft, milky light. They are arranged in niches along the walls and suspended from the ceiling by gold chains, creating a lighting that is shadowless and golden, mimicking the eternal twilight of the underworld. But it is the floor that commands attention. The marble mosaic is completely hidden. In its place lies a carpet of rose petals, knee-deep. They have been gathered from the Fayum at dawn and brought to the palace in damp baskets to preserve their freshness. Cleopatra steps into them. The sensation is unique, a soft, yielding resistance that swallows her feet. There is no sound of footsteps here. The petals muffle everything. Walking through them is like walking through a cloud of pink and red velvet. With every step, the petals are crushed, releasing a fresh burst of fragrance into the air, renewing the perfume of the room with every movement. In the center of this floral sea stands the dining sigma, a semicircular couch upholstered in silk of a deep, shimmering green, the color of the Nile at depth. In front of it, a low table carved from a single block of translucent agate glows from the lamplight filtering through it. Cleopatra reclines on the couch. The silk is cool against her skin, a contrast to the warmth of the room. She sinks into the cushions, her body heavy with the pleasant fatigue of the day. The petals surround the base of the couch, making it appear as if she is floating on a fragrant lake. The meal begins. It is a silent ballet of service. Nubian servants, dressed in white linen so starched it gleams, emerge from the shadows. They move without sound, their bare feet sinking into the roses. They do not speak. They anticipate. A silver basin is brought forward, filled not with water, but with orange blossom distillate. Cleopatra rinses her fingers. The cool liquid washes away the residue of the river air. A towel of heated linen dries them. The food is brought out on platters of gold and rock crystal. It is a menu designed to delight the eye as much as the palate. There are oysters from the canopic mouth of the Nile, chilled on beds of snow brought down from the mountains of Lebanon. Cleopatra takes one. It tastes of the sea, briny and cold, a shock of freshness. There are roasted quails, glazed with honey and pomegranate molasses, their skin crisp and dark. There are hearts of palm, braised in almond milk. There are figs stuffed with foie gras. She eats slowly, treating each bite as a meditation. The atmosphere of the room is heavy, almost narcotic. The scent of the roses, the warmth of the lamps, the richness of the food. It all conspires to slow the pulse. A musician sits in the far corner, almost invisible in the shadows. He plays a harp made of cedar and ivory. The music is not a melody to be actively listened to. It is a texture. The notes float through the air, vibrating against the skin, mingling with the scent of the flowers. It is a slow, liquid sound, like water flowing over stones. A servant approaches with the wine. It is a vintage from the Chian vineyards, aged for 20 years in amphory sealed with pine resin. He pours it into a cup carved from a single amethyst. The wine is dark, almost black in the dim light. Cleopatra lifts the cup. The amethyst remains cool to the touch. She drinks. The wine is heavy, complex, tasting of dark berries, earth, and time. It spreads a warm numbness through her chest, loosening the last knots of tension in her shoulders. She rests her head back against the cushions, looking up at the ceiling. It is painted with a fresco of the Feast of the Gods, but in the flickering lamplight, the figures seem to move and dance. She feels the solitude of her position. In this room of absolute luxury, surrounded by servants, she is the only one who truly exists. The others are shadows, extensions of her will. She is the center of this universe of soft light and sweet smells. The main courses are cleared away. The dessert is brought. It is simple. A pyramid of dates, gold dust and stuffed with walnuts, and a bowl of chilled cream sweetened with honey. She eats a date, the sticky sweetness coating her tongue. It is the taste of the desert, refined. The harpist changes the tempo, slowing it down even further. The notes become spaced out, hanging in the air for seconds before fading. The room seems to be breathing with the queen. Inhale, the scent of roses. Exhale, the flickering of the lamps. The weight of her eyelids grows. The day, the dawn, the bath, the throne, the library, the river, feels like a lifetime ago. She signals the end of the meal with a slight wave of her hand. The servants bow and retreat, disappearing back into the shadows from which they came. She remains alone for a moment in the sea of flowers. She looks at the agate table, now empty save for the amethyst cup. She runs a finger along the rim of the cup. The silence is absolute now, save for the faint hiss of a lamp burning low. She sits up, her body moving reluctantly. She stands, her feet sinking once more into the deep layer of petals. She walks towards the exit, wading through the fragrance. The hem of her linen dress drags through the flowers, leaving a trail like a ship in water. She leaves the dining hall behind, a glowing jewel box of scent and light, and steps back into the corridor. The air here is cooler, neutral. The walk to the royal bedchamber is short. The cycle is closing. The banquet is over, and the final surrender to sleep awaits. The walk back to the royal bedchamber is a journey in reverse. Cleopatra moves through the corridors of the palace, leaving behind the public grandeur of the banquet hall. The air grows stiller with every step. The guards stationed at the intersections bow silently as she passes, but she does not see them. Her eyes are half closed, heavy with the weight of the day. The sound of her linen dress trailing on the stone floor is a soft, continuous whisper, the only sound in the sleeping palace. She reaches the heavy cedar doors of her private sanctuary. They are opened for her by unseen hands and closed softly behind her. The click of the latch is a signal. The world is locked out. Inside, the room has been prepared for the night. The shutters are drawn against the sea breeze. The sunlight that flooded the room at dawn has been replaced by the glow of a single oil lamp, burning with a low, blue flame. The air is thick with the scent of lavender and chamomile, herbs chosen to soothe the mind and induce heavy, dreamless sleep. Cleopatra stands in the center of the room. The handmaidens appear from the shadows. They are the same women who dressed her at sunrise, but their movements now are slower, gentler. They are not building a queen. They are revealing the woman underneath. The ritual of unveiling begins. First, the cloak of royal blue is unpinned from her shoulders. The golden crocodile fibulae are removed and placed on a velvet tray. The heavy fabric slides down her back, pooling on the floor. She exhales, her shoulders dropping slightly as the weight is removed. Next, the broad collar of lapis lazuli and carnelian beads. The clasp is undone. The cold stones are lifted from her chest. The skin beneath is warm, marked faintly by the pressure of the gems. It is a relief, a physical lightening of the burden. Then the bracelets. One by one, the thick gold bands are slid from her wrists. Clink, clink. They are placed on the vanity table. Her arms feel light, floating. The outer sheath dress, the cullis iris, is untied and slips away, leaving her in the simple, sheer undertunic. She sits before the mirror. The reflection that stares back is tired, the eyes dark and smoldering under the kohl. The most important moment arrives, the removal of the wig. The handmaiden stands behind her and gently lifts the heavy structure of braided human hair and wool. It rises from her head. The cool air of the room touches her scalp for the first time in hours. It is a shock of pleasure. She shakes her head slightly, her own natural hair tumbling down, free from the confinement. She runs her fingers through it, massaging the roots, releasing the tension held there all day. Now the face. A bowl of warm almond oil is brought. A soft cloth is dipped into it. The handmaiden begins to wipe away the mask. The thick black lines of kohl, the green malachite on the eyelids, the red ochre on the lips. It all dissolves under the oil. The pharaoh disappears. The political icon vanishes. What remains is a face that is clean, bare, and vulnerable. The skin glows in the lamplight, stripped of artifice. Cleopatra stands and moves to the wash basin. She rinses her face with cool water, splashing away the oil. She dries herself with a towel that has been warmed over charcoal. She is ready. She walks towards the great ebony bed. The covers have been turned down, revealing the pristine white of the linen sheets. She climbs into the bed. The mattress, stuffed with goose down, yields under her weight, embracing her. She lies back against the mountain of pillows. The linen is cool against her legs, a delicious contrast to the warmth of the bath earlier. She stretches her limbs, feeling the muscles lengthen and relax. Her hands rest open at her sides. Her breathing slows, matching the flicker of the single lamp. The handmaiden approaches the lamp. She cups her hand around the flame. With a soft breath, she blows it out. The room plunges into darkness. But it is not a scary darkness. It is a velvet, protective cocoon. The only light comes from the moon filtering through the cracks in the shutters, painting thin stripes of silver on the floor. Cleopatra closes her eyes. The silence is absolute. No scribes, no generals, no music, no wind. Just the sound of her own heart beating slow and steady. The day dissolves. The golden dawn, the library scrolls, the purple sails of the barge. They all blur into a single, distant memory. She lets go. She sinks deeper into the mattress, deeper into the dark. The queen sleeps. The woman dreams. The night reigns supreme. The body of the queen lies motionless in the ebony bed, a statue carved from warm flesh and linen. Her breathing is a shallow, rhythmic tide, rising and falling with the pull of an invisible moon. But deep within the silence of the chamber, something stirs. It is not a physical movement, but a metaphysical unlocking. The ancient Egyptians believed in the Ba, the part of the soul that has wings, the part that can travel between the worlds while the body sleeps. Now, as the oil lamp flickers its last breath, Cleopatra's Ba awakens. It begins as a sensation of weightlessness. The heavy pull of the earth, the gravity that holds the pyramids to the sand and the water to the riverbed, releases its grip on her. She floats upward, passing through the sheer linen sheets as if they were mist. She hovers for a moment above her sleeping form, looking down at the woman who bears the burden of the crown. She sees the face stripped of paint, the hands unclenched. She feels a detached compassion for this sleeping vessel, but she does not linger. The night calls. She drifts through the limestone ceiling of the palace, dissolving through the stone like smoke. She emerges into the cool, open air of the Alexandrian night. The city is spread out below her, a map of shadows and silver light. She sees the lighthouse of Pharos, its great fire burning steadily, sending a beam of light across the dark Mediterranean. From this height, the fire is just a spark, a lonely star tethered to the earth. She rises higher, catching the updrafts of the sea. Breeze. The silence up here is absolute. There is no sound of waves, no cry of night birds. There is only the hum of the cosmos, a vibration that resonates in her spirit. She turns south, away from the sea, following the silver ribbon of the Nile. The river is the artery of the world, and tonight, it glows with a spectral luminescence, reflecting the Milky Way above. As she flies over the delta, the landscape changes. The geometric grid of Alexandria gives way to the organic chaos of the marshes. She sees the millions of lotus flowers, closed tight for the night, sleeping like folded hands on the surface of the black water. She senses the life teeming beneath the surface. The fish, the crocodiles, the hippos, all suspended in the dark, embryonic fluid of the river. Further south, the desert begins to encroach. The black soil of the fertile valley is bordered by the infinite, pale expanse of the sand. She flies over the pyramids of Giza. They stand like geometric mountains, their limestone casings gleaming white under the full moon. They are the anchors of time, the tombs of her ancestors. She circles the apex of the Great Pyramid, touching the capstone with her mind. It hums with the memory of the Old Kingdom, a song of stone and geometry that has lasted for thousands of years. She feels a kinship with them. They are silent, enduring, and majestic, everything she strives to be. She continues her journey, moving faster now, powered by thought alone. She passes over Thebes, the ancient capital, where the great temples of Karnak and Luxor sit in heavy, stone slumber. The columns are like a forest of petrified trees, casting long, sharp shadows. She sees the statues of the gods, Ammonius, Mut, Khonsu, standing watch in the dark sanctuaries. She does not need to enter. She feels their presence, a heavy, golden energy radiating from the stone. The river narrows. The land becomes wilder. She is approaching the source. The air grows warmer, smelling of deep earth and rain. She reaches the cataracts, where the water churns and boils over black rocks. But from her height, the turbulence is just a pattern, a swirling design of white foam on black water. She follows the river back to its mythical beginning, to the cave of Hapi, the god of the inundation. Here, in the deep subterranean dark, the water is born. It bubbles up from the heart of the earth, pure and endless. She hovers over this source. This is the lifeblood of her empire. Without this water, there is no wheat, no bread, no army, no Alexandria. She lowers herself towards the water, her spirit form brushing the surface. It is cool and charged with potential. She drinks not with her mouth, but with her soul. She absorbs the power of the river, the relentless, unstoppable force that carves through rock and desert. She feels the cycle of the flood, the planting, the harvest, the drought. She is the river. The river is her. The sky above begins to turn. The stars will overhead in their slow, eternal dance. She looks up and sees the constellation of Orion, the hunter, associated with Osiris, the god of the dead and rebirth. And near him, the star Sirius, her star, the star of Isis. It burns with a blue-white intensity, pulsing like a beacon, calls her back. The night is deep, but it is not endless. The journey must loop back to the beginning. She turns north again, riding the currents of the upper atmosphere. The return is instantaneous, a folding of space. One moment she is at the wild source of the Nile. The next, she is descending through the cool sea air of Alexandria. She sinks back through the palace roof, through the heavy cedar beams, through the shadows of the bedchamber. She hovers once more over the sleeping woman. The chest rises and falls. The heart beats its steady drum. With a sigh that is felt rather than heard, the ba re-enters the body. The sensation of weight returns. The softness of the mattress, the coolness of the linen, the scent of the lavender. It all rushes back, anchoring her to the physical plane. Cleopatra does not wake. She shifts slightly, turning her head on the pillow. The dream of the flight fades, settling into the deep recesses of her mind, leaving behind only a residue of peace and a feeling of immense, liquid power. She sleeps on, fueled by the river, watched over by the stars, holding the whole of Egypt in the quiet cup of her dreams. The spirit has returned to the body, and the queen sleeps deep within the velvet folds of the night. But outside the heavy cedar doors of her chamber, the palace is alive with a different kind of energy. It is the energy of vigilance. For in the ancient world, sleep was a vulnerability, a time when the chaos of the universe could creep in. Therefore, the protection of the pharaoh was not merely a matter of locking doors. It was a complex, coordinated ritual of steel and spirit that spanned the entire night. In the corridor immediately outside the royal bedchamber, the silence is thick and tension-filled. Here stand the Gabiniani, the elite household guard. They are men carved from granite, veterans of 100 desert campaigns. They stand in pairs, their backs pressed against the cool limestone walls, their eyes adjusting to the dim light of the single oil lamp that burns at the end of the hall. They do not speak. They do not shift their weight. Their breathing is so shallow it is inaudible. They are the first line of defense, a wall of living bronze between the queen and the world. Their armor, polished to a mirror shine, reflects the flickering lamplight, casting long, dancing shadows that stretch across the floor like silent sentinels. They grip their spears not with white-knuckled tension, but with the relaxed, deadly assurance of professionals. They are waiting for a threat they hope will never come, guardians of the silence. Further away, on the flat roof of the palace, the atmosphere is one of scientific reverence. Here, the royal astronomers maintain their own vigil. The night sky above Alexandria is a vast, glittering dome of crystal, unpolluted by the lights of the modern world. The Milky Way is a slash of spilled milk across the blackness. The astronomers, dressed in dark robes that blend with the shadows, stand by their instruments, the merhit for tracking the alignment of the stars, and the massive water clocks, the clepsydras, that mark the passage of the hours. Drop by drop, water falls from one alabaster vessel to another. Drip, drip, drip. It is the only sound on the roof, a liquid metronome counting down the night. The astronomers watch the rising of the Decans, the 36 groups of stars that organize the Egyptian sky. They are not just telling time. They are ensuring that the cosmic order, the Ma'at, is maintained. They believe that their observations help the sun god Ra navigate the perilous 12 gates of the underworld. If they fail to mark the hour, the sun might not rise. They look down at the sleeping city and the sleeping queen, knowing that her rest is tethered to the movement of these distant lights. They are the navigators of the night, steering the palace through the darkness towards the dawn. Deep in the bowels of the palace complex, within the private temple of Isis, another ritual is taking place. The air here is heavy with the smoke of frankincense, a thick, sweet cloud that hangs motionless in the sanctuary. A circle of priests, their heads shaved smooth and gleaming, their bodies wrapped in leopard skins over white linen, surround a golden statue of the goddess. They do not chant loudly. Their prayers are a low, rhythmic murmur, a vibration that hums in the chest rather than the ear. They are performing the ritual of the 12 hours. For every hour the queen sleeps, a specific spell must be recited, a specific libation poured. One priest tips a golden jar, allowing a stream of milk to flow onto the altar stone. The liquid spreads across the rock, a white offering to nourish the ka of the sleeper. They invoke the protection of the cobra goddess Wadjet to spit fire at any nightmares that might approach the royal bed. They call upon Bes, the dwarf god, to dance around her dreams and ward off evil spirits. It is a spiritual shield wall, constructed of words and will, erected to ensure that the queen's soul remains tethered safely to her body. Back in the bedchamber, Cleopatra remains oblivious to this machinery of protection. She turns in her sleep, her hand brushing the cool linen. The scent of lavender is still faint in the air. She is safe. She is held in the center of a web of loyalty and magic. The guards protect her body. The astronomers protect her time. The priests protect her soul. The night deepens. The hour of the wolf approaches, the darkest time before the dawn. The city of Alexandria is silent, save for the distant barking of a dog or the lap of the sea against the harbor walls. But inside the palace, the vigil continues. The water clock drips. The stars will overhead. The guards' eyes remain open, unblinking in the gloom. The cycle holds. The fortress is secure. And in the center of it all, the queen breathes on, resting in the absolute certainty that she is watched over by the earth and the heavens alike. The wheel of the night has turned its full circle. The deep, impenetrable blackness of the wolf hour begins to thin, dissolving imperceptibly into a deep, misty gray. The silence in the palace changes texture. It is no longer the heavy, guarded silence of the deep night, but the expectant, hushed silence of the pre-dawn. The vigil of the astronomers on the roof is ending. They have tracked the stars across the vault of heaven, guiding the sun god through the perils of the underworld, and now, they see the first sign of his victory. The morning star, glittering like a diamond shard low on the eastern horizon. Inside the royal bedchamber, the single oil lamp has finally burned dry. Its flame sputters once, a tiny pulse of blue light, and then vanishes, plunging the room into a soft, natural gloom. Cleopatra does not stir. Her breathing remains deep and even, a slow tide that matches the rhythm of the sea outside her window. She has traveled through the realms of politics, intellect, and spirit, and now she rests in the deepest valley of sleep, suspended in the timeless space between yesterday and tomorrow. Outside, the world begins to reassemble itself from the shadows. The great lighthouse of Pharos, which has burned fiercely all night as a beacon for the sailors, begins to dim. The keepers of the light, soot-stained and weary, cease feeding the fire. The column of smoke that rises from it turns from black to white as the sky lightens, drifting lazily over the harbor. The sea, which was a pool of ink hours ago, begins to regain its color. First a dull steel gray, then a deep, rich indigo. The waves lap against the palace walls with a gentle, rhythmic slosh. Hush, slosh, hush. It is the lullaby of the Mediterranean, eternal and unchanging. Further south, along the spine of the river, the Nile wakes before the land. A mist rises from the water, a ghostly vapor that curls around the reeds and the sleeping stalks of papyrus. The ibises untuck their heads from their wings. The crocodiles slide silently from the mud banks into the water, leaving no ripple behind. The river flows north, a relentless, life-giving force that has seen the rise and fall of dynasties, indifferent to the passage of time. It flows past the temples where the priests are just beginning to unlock the heavy bronze gates for the morning offering. It flows past the fields where the wheat is waiting for the sun. In the palace, the change is subtle. The Gabiniani guards at the door shift their stance, their long watch concluding. They exchange silent nods, their duty fulfilled. The fortress has held. The queen is safe. In the corridors, the night servants retreat like shadows before the sun, making way for the day shift. The smell of fresh bread begins to drift from the royal bakeries, mixing with the lingering scent of night jasmine. Light touches the top of the Great Pyramid of Giza, hundreds of miles away. The capstone, covered in electrum, a mixture of gold and silver, catches the first ray of Ra. It flares brilliantly, a second sun ignited on Earth. The light travels down the faces of the pyramid, chasing away the shadows of the desert. It is a daily miracle, a confirmation that chaos has been defeated for another day, that the order of the universe holds firm. The light reaches Alexandria. It creeps over the windowsill of the royal bedroom, no longer the harsh glare of noon, but a soft, tentative finger of pale gold. It travels across the floor, over the cool mosaics, past the cedar chests, and touches the foot of the ebony bed. It does not wake the queen. It merely bathes her in a glow of renewal. The cycle is complete. The day of the samurai was a line, a path from discipline to rest. The day of Cleopatra is a circle, a ring of gold that has no beginning and no end. The sun rises, the sun sets, the sun rises again. There is no need to worry about the future, for the future is just another turn of the wheel. You are part of this cycle. The same stars that watched over Cleopatra watch over you. The same sun that warmed the stones of the pyramids will rise to warm your world. But not yet. For now, you are safe in the darkness. You are protected by the silence. You are drifting on the barge of the night, carried by the gentle current of the dream. The story ends, but the rest continues. The river flows on. The stars fade. The silence remains. Sleep,